Hello, good morning, good day. My name is Nina. This is a channel where we do graphic design things. Today I am going to go over how to make a Linocut artwork in Adobe Illustrator. Let's do it. Okay, so this is the artwork that I've made as an example to kind of teach how to do this technique. So if you're not familiar with Linocut, it's a pretty cool type of art where you actually carve out part of this stuff. I don't know exactly what material it is, but with sharp tools. If you just do a quick Google search, you can see some really cool ones. So this is a reductive process because when they do this, they take these tools that you can see in some of these pictures and you cut away from the material. And what's left, you can apply ink to and press that onto paper or whatever you're putting it on, and it makes a really cool looking piece of art. So today I'm going to show you how to do that except digitally in Illustrator. So the only thing you'll need today is, if you have it, a tablet of some sort. Mine's the Wacom 1. It was like $30 probably. It's literally the cheapest one I could find. It doesn't have any buttons or anything like that. Just this and this, and that's it. But if you don't have that, that's fine too, because I will show you some workarounds. Alright, so here we are in Illustrator. I'm just gonna open up another artboard and we're gonna start over again with this and just kind of work with them side by side, and I can show you what I did. I probably won't be doing everything all over again, but I'll show you how to do each of the steps. So when I did this, I started off with an outline, and the way I created this was just with the pen tool. And you can see on the first one, I didn't line it up exactly because I wanted to make it look just a little bit better after I was done with it, and this was just a quick sketch. Alright, so to start this, you're going to want to make some of your own brushes. And as you can see, if I move my layers panel out of the way, I have some brushes here that I've created already. I didn't end up using all of these. It was kind of trial and error to see what worked and what didn't, and most of them actually did not work. But I'm going to show you the ones that did work. So to start off, I did the outline, and for that, I used this brush up here. And you can see it kind of tapers. So to make this brush, you're going to want to go to your blob brush tool and make a line. If you're using a pressure sensitive tablet, activate your blob brush tool, then click on it to open the blob brush tool options window, and then you're going to want to put pressure and then put the variation up a little bit. It's up all the way right now. It's as high as my point size is for the brush itself. And I have my fidelity here on accurate rather than smooth, because with Linocut, it's a very rough looking sort of artwork. So the rougher your brush strokes look, the rougher it's going to look in your artwork, and it's going to be more like actual Linocut. So if you have your pressure sensitivity on, you can just click and create a line that tapers down at the end. So press down at the top and then kind of lighten up. Once you get a fairly straight one that is thicker at one side and thinner at the other, then you can continue to make this into a brush. But if you don't have that, you can just do your regular blob brush tool and just double back on it. If you have a line that's more or less one thickness, then you can just go back and make it thicker on one end. That is a little harder, and that one looks bad, so I'm not going to use that. Now you can highlight your tapered line that you have and make it completely horizontal. So if you want, you can drag a ruler down. If you don't see your rulers, you can press Ctrl R and they should pop up, and then drag one down and make sure that your brush is horizontal. And when you're happy with the level of it, then you can click and drag that into your brushes panel. If you don't see your brushes panel, you can go up to window and then brushes and click that, and it will pop up, and then you can use it. So just click and drag that in, and then you're going to want to click on art brush and press OK. You can name it something. I'm not going to bother naming this one because I'm probably not actually going to keep it. If you have a drawing tablet, click pressure right here and then move this one down to around 50 and this one to around 150, and you can type those in as well. If you want there to be a bigger difference, then you can obviously change those. Then you're going to want to click here, stretch to fit stroke length. Want to make sure that the direction right here matches the direction of your stroke. So the thick end is here and the thin end is here, so it's going to go this way, and that arrow indicates that that's the way it's going. And that's what we want, so we're going to leave it at that. And then for colorization, in case you want to change the color later, change this to hue shift. And we're going to ignore all these things right here. Those are all fine. And then we're going to press OK. So once you have that, you should have a brush like this. And then you can start drawing along and making your outlines. I forgot to mention that in order to lock your outline that you made, press Ctrl 2. And that will lock it so that you can't accidentally mess this up at all. Okay, so once our outline is on there like this, go ahead and lock that as well. And then you can turn off the visibility on your sketch. Okay, so next we're going to want to color in the areas that are supposed to be dark, like the eye area here, and I'm just going to do that with the pen tool. The keyboard shortcut for that is P, and I do have a video on how to use the pen tool if you're unsure. And then just make sure that the fill is black. Or if you don't want to use the pen tool, I personally find that it's a little bit quicker, but you can also use the blob brush tool, which I did use for part of this originally. And then you can just come in here and color everything in. And in my blob brush tool settings, I have it set so that it won't automatically merge your shapes that you make with this, because I find that I like to be able to undo it, because the blob brush tool originally, when you don't change that setting, is very destructive, meaning that if you change something, it's hard to undo what you've done. So I like to just make it so that they don't merge, and then if I need to later on, I can merge them. That way, if you mess up on something, you don't have to go get the eraser tool and erase it, or you don't have to just delete the whole thing and start over. And then once you have the areas that you want, try to keep them separate. So I'm going to select everything in the face, but deselect the eye here, so that just the face is selected, and you can see all the paths that were made with my blob brush tool. So then I'm going to come over here to the Pathfinder panel, and again, if you don't see that, go up to Window at the top and then find Pathfinder down here. Anyway, so you'll go to Pathfinder and then you'll click right here to unite, and it'll all become one shape. And as you'll notice, the edges here are pretty jagged. They don't really matter because we have an outline anyway, but it does affect the artwork by making it a larger file with all of these. If you go into your direct selection tool, you can see every anchor point, and there are a whole lot of them. So what I like to do after I use the blob brush tool, if you can't see the edges anyway, and it doesn't matter if they're smooth or rough, then go over to here to Object, Path, and then Simplify. And then this will pop up and you can click and drag, and I like to just take the points down as much as possible. It makes it easier to change later, and it makes the file size smaller and all that. But if you're going for the rough edge, and if your edge actually does matter and you want it to be rough, then just leave it, because a lot of anchor points are not the end of the world. Okay, so once all of the areas that you want to be black are colored in, then you can go ahead and add the details. I've already started that a little bit right here with his eyes, and I'm not being perfect about this. You can see there's some white spots left. Go ahead and color that in to the best of your ability. I'm just using this as an example, so I'm not going to be too picky about it. But you can take the blob brush again and make some highlights on the eyes. One of the details that I'm going to start making right now is the detailing right here on his neck, or her neck. I don't know if it's a boy or girl. So the brush I'm going to be using, it's kind of a cool one. It has a bunch of different lines right inside the same brush. So to make this brush, you're going to make some shapes similar to what you did before. Make them look kind of like this. So just a bunch of different lines all right here. And then you're going to select all of them and bring them in to the brushes panel and do all the same settings as you did before. Once you've done that, you can select it in your brush panel and then go along and kind of follow the curve of the frog's neck. So once those are mostly filled in, you're going to want to highlight all of them and go Object, Expand Appearance, and then that makes all of these, instead of editable brush paths, it's going to make them all each individual shapes. So after that, I'm just going to ungroup all of them, and that's Control-Shift-G to ungroup. Then you can select certain shapes that you want and duplicate them, fill in areas that you need to be filled in, or if they're too close together, you can delete some and move them around. until they're spaced out well. And if you have some that go beyond the borders, all you have to do is go over here to your eraser tool. The keyboard shortcut for that is Shift E. You can use the open and close bracket keys to make your brush bigger or smaller, and then select what you want to be erased, and they'll all highlight in blue. And then you can just erase everything that you don't want to be in that area. And when you use the eraser tool, it looks kind of like you're erasing everything underneath, but it actually only affects what is selected. If you need to make some of the shapes longer, you can either mess with the anchor points and extend them, or you can add more shapes to fill in those areas. Once you're happy with how that turned out, we can move on to a different area. So we'll put in some of the skirt details that you can see on this side. The way I did that was to take one of these brushes, which has a cool effect to it, as you can see. So this one doesn't really show the real shape that I made, but basically it was just a slightly curved shape. It's pretty close to what it was, but it was a shape kind of like this. And then you do exactly all the same brush settings as you did before. Click and drag it in, press Art Brush, and then make all the settings the same as before. So with that brush selected, we can come in to the skirt area and make the stroke smaller again to 0.25, and then you can put in some nice little embellishments. And then when you're through doing all of the black ones, go over here to your color panel and just change that stroke to white, and then you can go ahead and do some white on the black. I like to try to lock my layers as I go so that the thing I just did won't get messed up when I put new ones on top of it. It also helps to try to keep your layers panel organized. That way if you're looking for something later, it's not going to be impossible to find it. So as you can see, I have the skirt rim area. If I select that, it selects the entire skirt rim area. And then the throat is labeled the throat. All of the pieces that I colored in black are a group right here that I did not name. And then the outline. So the next part that we're going to do is the dot detailing for the texture of the skin. For that, I used another custom brush that looks something like this. So to make that, you can just go to your pencil tool and just make a bunch of shapes and make sure that it fills those. So go on your pencil tool settings and click on fill new pencil strokes and just make sure that your fill color is black. So just do a bunch of little bumps right here, do some longer, some shorter, something like that. So then just select all of those and click and drag them into your brush panel like before and do all the same brush settings as we used before. Then change your color to white, bring up that one that you just made, change the stroke down to be smaller again, and then go for it. So with this one, it actually became a lot bigger even at a small point size than I thought it would. So what I did here is I just made a couple where I liked what the brush stroke looked like, and so that they're just a little different from each other. And then you can group them, Control G, then go to Object, Expand Appearance, and then they're all shapes. So then you can resize them, and I would just keep one off to the side and make copies. To make copies, you can hold Alt and click and drag out, and then just place those exactly where you want them to be. And you don't have to be too exact. I would turn them so that there's no super obvious patterns. And then just put them where you like them to be and go ahead and use the eraser tool to make it a little more accurate as to where you want it to be. It takes some fiddling with and some finessing to get it to a point where you like what it looks like, but once you do, it makes it look really good. So when you're putting these on there, try to think about where the highlights would be if the light were shining down. So if the light's shining down here, I didn't put any on the hand behind because I feel like it would have made it too complicated and you wouldn't have been able to tell where the fingers and everything were supposed to be. But just try to be conscious of where the light would be coming down. So like right here, it would probably hit up here, it would hit on the top of its head, the top of the hand, the top of the fingers, and then down here I did the top of the feet as well. It's really starting to come together now, but there's still a lot of blank spaces that need to be filled in. So for the skirt area, I made a brush that tapers on both ends. You can see it right here. It's this one, Art Brush 16. It's almost exactly like the first brush we made with the blob brush tool, except this time, instead of making it taper on one end, we're going to make it taper on both ends. You can just make one and then duplicate it, flip it around, join the ends, make sure it's completely horizontal, and then click and drag that into your brush tool. Okay, once you have a brush that tapers like that, you can turn the color to white, go back to your brush tool, keyboard shortcut B, change the stroke size down again, and then just draw some lines. So with the tutu, I tried to make it so that when you're looking at it, the parts over here, you'd be looking through some parts and seeing the other part. Try to make those lines closer together, and then out here where you wouldn't be looking through part of the tutu to see the other part of the tutu, make it more spread out. And then I just did these little lines over here for some additional shading. If some of them don't lay exactly the way you want them to, or if it's easier for you to draw one side rather than the other, like these lines came out really nice, but when I try to do this side, I can never get them to be right. They always look bad. Then an easy way is just to copy and paste. So I'll Control C, Control V, and then down at my transform panel, I'll say flip horizontal, and then just place them on that side. And that's an easy way to fill in so you don't have to draw every single line. Another thing when you're doing these details, I would just make sure that the outline is on top. That way you get a nice crisp edge. Okay, so now all we have to do are the clothes. So I tried to make it kind of like a fabric texture, and I used the same brush as before. I made a nice arc that tapers on both ends. So just try to do one that you like the shape of. You can edit it a little bit with your direct selection tool if you need to, and then go ahead and make the size of that a little bit smaller. And then you can just Alt, click and drag, hold Shift to make it straight, and then Control D to duplicate all the way up. Just do a bunch of them, and then you can select all of them, pull them down to where they're supposed to be, and then you can alter them from there. So just make sure that it covers the whole thing, and you don't need to be too meticulous about it, because then you can just go to your eraser tool again and erase away the places that aren't supposed to be there. So I'm not erasing out from the neck right now, because we're actually going to use this section and duplicate it once we're done adding the highlights. So go back to your brush tool, use the same brush, make it white this time, and then draw some highlights on the side. And once you have those how you like it, you're just gonna select every other black line. You can group them if you want, and then use Control and the close bracket key to bring it up in the layers panel. And so that just brings it over some of the white ones, and it gives kind of this fabric texture. Then you can take your white ones, Control C, Control V, Control G if you want to group them, and then come down to your layers panel and place them where you want them to be. Then you can reorder those ones as well until they're underneath. Then once you have, this obviously isn't exactly like my first one, I had a lot more, but this is just for instructional purposes. You can group all those, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and then we're just gonna make it way skinnier and a little closer together until it matches the leg size. And when you squish it together or when you pull it apart, it changes the curvature of the lines a little bit. So if those get too curved, you can just grab your direct selection tool, grab those handles, and then pull them up. Now it's not working this time because I have way too many anchor points. So if you just simplify it, then go to your direct selection tool, grab those handles so you can see it's a nice neat row now, and then just use your arrow keys to bring those handles back a little bit. I'm going to leave a copy of that beside there to use. So really the only ones here that matter to change them one by one would probably be the white lines. So just click those anchor points with your direct selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, and drag them to where you want them to be. Something like that. And then you can select all of them and use your eraser tool to remove it from the places you don't want it to be. And then just click and drag this onto all the other parts and do the same. A quick and easy way to do it. And you can do the same for every section. I separate it by like upper and lower arms, and then the torso and upper and lower leg. Each of those its own section. And of course you can change some of them around to match the curves of the arms and everything better, so that they're not all going in one direction, so that they go with the artwork a little bit better. It depends how meticulous you want to be. I also changed mine up a little bit so that it looks like the light is hitting the outside of the arm a little bit more than the inside. Okay, so now the only thing that we need to do now are the small details. So if you look on this side, I have a white brush stroke here and here, one here to define the nose, and then ones to separate this hand from the hand in back. I also have some on the feet so that it looks like the foot is bent, and you can see that highlight there. So all you have to do for that is just take one of your brushes in white and draw that out where you need it to be. And these highlights are actually going to be on top of the outline. Something like this. And then I also made a bigger brush stroke and kind of made a one to separate the face from the arm because it does get a little lost there. And then with that, just select those brush strokes, object, expand appearance. You can unite them if you'd like to, and then go to the eraser tool, make it pretty close to there, to the outline, and then you can just throw it behind the outline. So that's how you draw a Linocut style artwork in Adobe Illustrator. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Like if you learned something, subscribe for more graphic design things. I'm in the middle also of a series that I'm doing going through Illustrator and teaching every part of it. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for more of those and go watch the ones I've posted, and I'll see you in the next video.